Chosen one, listen closely, because every single person who ever wronged you is about to stand in the same light at the same time. Read that again, slowly, because it is exactly what it sounds like, and it is exactly what you have quietly been waiting for without ever saying it out loud. Not one at a time, not spaced out over months so it's easy to ignore. All at once, the ones who lied to your face and the ones who lied behind your back. The ones who watched it happen and said nothing. The ones who smiled at you Tuesday and talked about you Wednesday. They're all about to be standing in the same room when the lights come on, and none of them know it yet. You knew something was coming. You felt it in the quiet, in the way certain people stopped meeting your eyes, in the way conversations changed shape the second you walked in. That wasn't paranoia. That was you sensing the weight of something building. And now, it's here. The universe doesn't do this in pieces for people like you. It doesn't hand you one apology and call it even. It waits, and it gathers. And when it finally moves, it moves like a net closing from every direction at once. Every person who ever wronged you, every one of them, is about to answer for it in the open, at the same time, with nowhere left to point the finger but at themselves. Here's what nobody tells you about being wronged quietly. It doesn't just hurt once. It hurts every time you replay it, every time you wonder if you imagined it, every time someone tells you to let it go before it was ever actually addressed. You carried that. You carried the version of events where you were the problem, where you were too sensitive, where you should have just moved on. You carried it while they walked around free of it, untouched, unaccountable, acting like nothing happened because nothing happened to them. That gap, the gap between what they did and what they paid for it, that's the exact thing the universe has been quietly closing this entire time. And it doesn't close a gap like that with a whisper. It closes it with a flood. You didn't build this moment. You didn't orchestrate it, plan it, or force it into existence with revenge fantasies at 2 in the morning. You just kept living honestly, while they kept living on borrowed time. And borrowed time always comes due. Every excuse they made, every alibi they built, every story they told themselves to sleep at night, all of it was temporary. All of it was waiting for the one thing they never accounted for, that the truth doesn't need everyone to come forward one by one. Sometimes it needs them to all be standing in the same place when the floor gives out. And chosen one, that floor is about to give out under every single one of them, together. Every person who ever wronged you in silence is going to be judged in the open. Not softly, not privately, in a conversation that stays behind closed doors where they can control how it's remembered. In the open, where the people who watched them do it the first time are the exact same people who will watch them answer for it now. That's the part they never prepared for, because they never imagined judgment arriving with an audience. They imagined, if anything ever came out at all, a quiet correction, a private word, something manageable, something they could survive with their reputation mostly intact. What's coming isn't that. What's coming is public, connected, and complete, and there is no version of it that leaves any of them standing exactly where they were standing before. Before we go further, if this is landing somewhere real in you, hit like and subscribe. Not as a favor to me, as a signal back to the universe that you're paying attention, that you're ready for what's coming, that you want this message to reach the next chosen one who needs to hear it exactly when you needed to hear it. That's the whole exchange. You give the signal, it keeps moving. Now let's keep going, because the exposure isn't a single event, it's a sequence. And once you understand the sequence, you'll never look at your own story the same way again. Think about how these things usually go for everyone else. Someone gets exposed. Their circle gathers around them anyway. A few weeks pass, the algorithm forgets, and life resumes exactly where it left off. That's the normal version. That's the version they were counting on. But that's not what's built for you. What's built for you isn't a headline that fades in a week. It's a full unraveling, thread by thread, connected in ways they never saw coming, because they never imagined anyone was paying close enough attention to connect it. They thought their lies were isolated incidents. A comment here, a rumor there, a quiet exclusion nobody would ever trace back. What they didn't understand is that isolated incidents only stay isolated if nobody's counting. Someone was counting, something was counting, and the count is finished. Chosen one, are you ready to walk through exactly how this unfolds? Because what's coming isn't random, and it isn't small. Drop 77 in the comments right now if you can feel it building, if you already sense that something in your life has been quietly rearranging itself toward this exact moment. And if this message is doing something for you that words alone usually can't, consider dropping a super thanks. It keeps messages like this reaching the people who are exactly where you were 6 months ago, wondering if the silence would ever break. Now, let's break this down, piece by piece, because once the exposure starts, it doesn't stop until every name has been said. Number 1. The list nobody knew was being kept. Every single person who ever wronged you assumed their moment was forgettable. A cutting comment in a group chat. A lie told to save face at your expense. A door quietly closed on you while they smiled to your face the next day. They assumed it evaporated the second it happened, the way most small cruelties do for people who never get caught. What they didn't know is that nothing disappears. It gets logged. Not by you, not consciously, not in some petty revenge journal you keep under your pillow. It gets logged by the universe itself, the same way weather systems log pressure, the same way rivers log rainfall from 100 miles upstream before anyone downstream even sees a cloud. You were the downstream. You felt the pressure building for years without understanding why. Now you understand. Every name on that list has been sitting there the entire time, dated, time-stamped, connected to every other name doing the exact same thing to you in a slightly different room. They thought they were operating alone. They were never operating alone. They were contributing to a single, growing case file, and the case file is now complete. Imagine a table covered in what looks like scattered puzzle pieces. No picture, no order, just fragments dropped by different hands at different times. That's what their cruelty looked like from the outside. Random, disconnected, easy to deny individually. But someone has been assembling that table the entire time, and the picture that's forming isn't random at all. It's a pattern with their fingerprints all over it. And once a pattern like that becomes visible, it can't be unseen by anyone who looks at it, including them. That's the part that terrifies people who wronged someone quietly. They built their whole defense on the idea that nobody would ever connect the dots. They never imagined the dots were already connected before they finished drawing them. You didn't need to keep score. You didn't need to build a file, save screenshots, or replay every slight in your head trying to build a case. You just needed to keep living honestly, while everyone who wronged you kept adding their name to a list they didn't know existed. That's the terrifying elegance of how this works. They wrote their own names down, every single time. And now the list is finished, and it's about to be read out loud, together, at once, with no way for a single name on it to argue it was somehow different from the rest. Number 2, the lie only works when it's alone. What made their lies survive this long wasn't cleverness, it was isolation. A lie told in one room, disconnected from every other lie told about you in a different room, is nearly impossible to disprove, because nobody's comparing notes. That's the entire architecture their comfort was built on. Person 1 says one version, person 2 says a slightly different version, person 3 never says anything at all, just nods along, letting the silence do the lying for them. Each version survives because it's never placed next to the others. The second you put them side by side, they don't match. The timeline breaks. The motive contradicts itself. The person who claimed they barely knew you turns out to have said your name in 3 different conversations. That's what's about to happen, chosen one. And it's happening to all of them simultaneously, which is the part they never planned for. A lie that gets exposed alone can be managed. Someone apologizes, someone deflects. Life moves on quietly. But a lie that gets exposed at the exact moment, 4 other lies about the same person also break, in front of the same room, at the same time, that's not manageable. That's a collapse. Picture a group of people each holding 1 card from the same deck, each certain their card alone means nothing. Then someone flips the table and lays every card face up at once. Suddenly, it's not a handful of unrelated cards. It's a full hand, and it tells a complete story none of them can talk their way out of. They're about to feel that exact moment. Not one at a time, where they could quietly manage the fallout and move to the next excuse. All at once, where the excuses cancel each other out in real time. And chosen one, you don't have to do a single thing to make that happen. You don't have to expose anyone. You don't have to confront a single person. You just have to keep existing exactly as honestly as you already have been. Because the truth doesn't need your help collapsing a house built entirely out of separate, disconnected lies. It just needs them all to be in the same room when the wind finally shifts. Number 3. Why the quiet ones are exposed first, not last. This is the part that surprises people most, so let's sit inside it for a second. You'd think the loudest liar, the one who did the most damage, the one who started the whole thing, would be the first to fall. But that's not how this works, and it's not how it's ever worked. The quiet ones go first, the ones who watched it happen and said nothing, the ones who knew the truth and let the lie stand because correcting it would have cost them a seat at a table they didn't want to lose. Their silence felt safe to them because silence doesn't leave fingerprints, or so they thought. But silence isn't neutral. Silence is a choice, made over and over. Every single time the truth had a chance to come out and didn't. And choices, repeated enough times, become patterns just as loud as the original lie. Here's why they go first. Because when the exposure begins, the loud liar's story is already expected to be false. Nobody's shocked. But the quiet one, the one who always seemed reasonable, always seemed like they were just staying out of it, their exposure hits differently because it reveals something worse than a lie. It reveals complicity dressed up as neutrality. Imagine a jury that already suspects the obvious suspect. That case is almost boring. Everyone saw it coming. But then imagine the moment it comes out, that the calm witness sitting quietly in the back, the one everyone trusted precisely because they never said much, knew the whole truth the entire time, and chose comfort over honesty. That's the moment the room actually gasps. That's the exposure that changes how people see every single other person connected to the story. Because if the quiet one was compromised, what does that say about everyone else who stayed quiet alongside them? You're about to watch that exact moment happen, more than once, to more than one person you never even suspected. The ones who told you they didn't want to get involved. The ones who said it wasn't their place to say anything. The ones who let you sit in a version of events you knew was wrong because correcting it out loud felt inconvenient to them. They're not going to be forgotten in this. They're going to be first. Number 4. Every "I didn't want to get involved" was a choice, and it's being priced in. There's a phrase people use to excuse themselves from accountability, and you've heard it more times than you can count. I didn't want to get involved. I stayed out of it. It wasn't my business. It sounds neutral. It's supposed to sound neutral. That's the entire design of the phrase, to make an active decision feel like an absence of one. But chosen one, there is no version of watching someone you know get wronged, having information that could correct it, and choosing silence that qualifies as neutral. That's a decision. It was priced the way every decision eventually gets priced, whether the person making it wants to acknowledge that or not. You're about to watch that price come due for a specific group of people. The ones who thought staying quiet meant staying clean. They weren't clean. They were comfortable, and comfort at someone else's expense always eventually gets a bill attached to it. Think of it like a debt that doesn't accrue interest visibly, so it feels like it isn't accruing at all. Every month it sits unpaid. It looks the same on the surface. Nothing changes, no consequence shows up. And then one day, all at once, the full balance comes due, and it comes due with everything that built up while nobody was watching. That's what's happening to the people who told themselves silence was safety. It wasn't safety. It was a growing balance, and the balance is about to be collected, in full, in public, with no partial payment plan available. You don't need to remind them of what they did. You don't need to send a single message, bring up a single memory, or confront a single person about their silence. The record already exists. It's already dated. It's already connected to every other name on the list. All you have to do, chosen one, is exactly what you've already been doing, living honestly while the balance quietly grew on accounts that were never yours to begin with. Number 5. The moment the pattern became undeniable. There's always a single moment where a scattered set of incidents stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like a pattern. For you, that moment already happened, even if you haven't fully clocked it yet. It's the moment where you stopped asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" and started asking, "Why does this keep happening around the same handful of people?" That shift, from personal doubt to structural clarity, that's the exact shift the exposure has been building toward this entire time. Before that moment, every wrong thing that happened to you could be explained away individually. Bad timing, miscommunication, you're being too sensitive. Each excuse worked in isolation because each incident was being examined alone, disconnected from the others, exactly the way they wanted it examined. But patterns don't stay hidden forever, especially not patterns this consistent, this repeated, this clearly centered around the same names showing up again and again in different disguises. Imagine looking at a single dark cloud and wondering if it might rain. Now imagine looking at a sky completely covered in the exact same cloud formation, stretching from one horizon to the other. At some point, you stop wondering if it might rain and start understanding that a storm is already here. It just hasn't broken yet. That's where you are right now, chosen one. The pattern is fully visible. It's not a theory anymore. It's not a suspicion you're talking yourself out of at 2 in the morning. It's a structure, built entirely out of their own choices, standing there in full view, waiting for the moment it finally gets named out loud by someone who isn't you. And once a pattern becomes that visible, it can't be argued away as coincidence anymore. Not by them, not by anyone still trying to defend them. Number 6. Why it happens all at once and not one at a time. You might wonder why the universe doesn't just deal with these things as they happen, one consequence per offense, tidy and immediate. It would be simpler, it would feel fairer in the moment. But it wouldn't actually be fair, because immediate consequences let people isolate their own behavior from the larger pattern they were part of. If every small wrong got corrected the second it happened, nobody would ever have to see the full shape of what they built. They'd get to experience each mistake as a standalone event, learn nothing from the accumulation, and walk away thinking they'd simply had some bad luck along the way. That's not correction, that's just noise. What's coming for the people who wronged you isn't noise. It's a single, undeniable reveal of the entire architecture at once, because that's the only version of exposure that actually teaches anything, to them and to everyone watching. Think about a magician's trick that gets explained piece by piece over years. Each reveal feels small, forgettable, easy to shrug off. Now think about the same trick getting exposed all at once. Every mirror, every hidden compartment, every sleight of hand, laid bare in a single moment in front of the entire audience. That second version doesn't just end the trick. It ends the magician's credibility permanently, because there's no way to spin an all-at-once reveal as one unfortunate misunderstanding. That's what's coming, not a slow drip they can manage and explain away one conversation at a time. A flood, arriving together, impossible to compartmentalize, impossible to blame on a single bad actor, while the rest quietly walk free. Chosen one, this is why patience mattered more than you ever wanted it to. Every day this took longer than you wanted it to wasn't a delay. It was the gathering. And gathering, by definition, has to happen before the release, or there's nothing to release at all. Number 7. The ones who thought they hid best are the easiest to find. There's always a particular kind of person in every situation like this who believes they were careful. They never said anything directly. They never put anything in writing. They kept their hands technically clean while still benefiting from every lie told around them, nodding along in private, distancing themselves in public the moment it looked risky. They believe that carefulness protects them. It doesn't. It does the opposite. Because the people who thought they hid best usually hid in the most obvious place of all, right in the middle of every version of the story, connected to everyone else involved, just slightly more careful about how loudly they said it. And when a pattern gets traced, the connections matter more than the volume. A whisper repeated to 5 different people leaves 5 different trails. A shout only leaves one. The person who thought they were being smart by staying quiet and strategic actually built the widest web of all, because their fingerprints are on every version of the story instead of just one. Picture someone trying to hide by standing perfectly still in the center of a room while everyone else runs for the exits. It feels like the safest move in the moment. Nobody's paying attention to the person who isn't moving, but the second the lights come up fully, that person isn't hidden at all. They're standing in the exact center of everything, more visible than anyone who actually ran. That's what's about to happen to the ones who thought careful silence made them invisible. They weren't invisible. They were just waiting to be the most obvious thing in the room the moment someone finally looked directly at the center instead of the edges. Chosen one, you probably already have a name or two in mind right now. The ones who always seemed just far enough removed to be safe. They weren't removed, they were positioned, and position is exactly what's about to be exposed. Number 8. You don't have to build the case. The record already exists. Here's something that might take weight off your chest right now if you're still carrying it. You don't have to become the person who proves any of this. You don't have to collect the screenshots, organize the timeline, confront every single person, or convince a single skeptic that what happened to you actually happened. That work is already done. It was done the moment each of them made their choice, said their piece, told their version, and left a trace behind, whether they meant to or not. Every lie leaves a residue. Every betrayal leaves a shape in the people who witnessed it, even the ones who never said anything out loud about what they saw. You don't need to be the prosecutor in this. You were never meant to carry that role, and carrying it would have cost you the exact piece that made your version of the story the true one all along. The people trying to prove something usually have to force it, manufacture urgency, keep the story alive through sheer effort, because the truth alone isn't enough to hold attention. You never had to force anything. You just had to survive it accurately, without embellishing, without needing anyone's belief to validate what you already knew happened. That's the difference between a case that has to be built and a case that already exists and is simply waiting to be read. Imagine 2 rooms. In one, someone is frantically assembling evidence, terrified it won't be enough, terrified the story will collapse without constant maintenance. In the other room, Someone is sitting calmly because they know the record was never in danger of disappearing. It was simply waiting for the right moment to be opened. You've been sitting in that second room the entire time, chosen one, whether you realized it or not. The case was never yours to build. It was only ever yours to survive long enough to see it opened. Number 9. What happens when their stories stop matching each other? Every group of people who wronged someone in silence eventually reaches a point where their stories, once perfectly aligned in private, start drifting apart the second pressure gets applied to any one of them. This is the moment you're about to watch unfold, and it's more satisfying than any confrontation could ever be, because it requires nothing from you at all. It happens naturally, the way cracks always spread from the weakest point outward. One of them will remember the timeline slightly differently than the others, because none of them actually agreed on a single, unified lie. They only agreed to protect each other loosely, assuming it would never actually get tested. The moment it gets tested, that loose agreement falls apart immediately, because self-preservation always wins over group loyalty the second real consequences show up. The person who was closest to you will suddenly remember things very differently than the person who barely knew you. The one who claimed they tried to defend you will suddenly be unable to produce a single specific example of when that defense actually happened. Small inconsistencies, the kind that mean nothing on their own, start stacking on top of each other until the whole structure they built together becomes impossible to hold up. Picture a group of people trying to carry a heavy object, using a story instead of their hands. Each person gripping their version tightly, believing the others are gripping just as tightly. The second one person's grip slips, even slightly, the entire weight shifts, and everyone else feels it immediately. That's what's about to happen. Not because you pushed, not because you confronted anyone, simply because a structure built on convenience instead of truth was never designed to hold weight for very long, and the weight just arrived. Number 10. The rooms that laughed will be the rooms that answer. There were rooms you weren't in, conversations you weren't part of, where your name came up and something about you became the punchline for people who thought there would never be a cost attached to that comfort. You know this happened even without proof. The same way you can feel a draft from a door you can't see. That feeling wasn't imagination, it was accurate. And chosen one, those exact rooms are about to become the rooms where the answering happens. Not a different room, not a softened version delivered somewhere private and comfortable. The same rooms, the same people, the same energy that once felt safe enough to laugh at your expense is about to feel the specific discomfort of being asked to explain themselves in front of the same audience that used to laugh along with them. There's a particular kind of justice in that symmetry, and it isn't something you have to orchestrate. It happens naturally because the people who laughed the loudest usually did so in front of witnesses, and witnesses remember more than people expect, especially once the story they were sold starts falling apart in front of them. Imagine a theater where the audience laughed at a joke made at someone's expense, and then, months later, that exact audience returns to the exact same seats to watch the person who told the joke get asked, directly, why they thought it was funny, with no laugh track this time, no crowd to hide behind, just silence and the question hanging in the air. That's the room they're about to sit in. Not a private correction they can manage quietly. A public one, in the exact place where the original comfort was built, which means the exact place where it's about to be dismantled. Before we go further into what happens after the exposure lands, I want you locked in for this next part, because it's the part most people rush past without letting it actually land. If you're still here, still feeling this in your chest, and not just your head, drop 77 in the comments one more time. Let it mark exactly where you were when this message reached you. And if you've got a moment of gratitude in you right now, a super thanks helps this reach the next chosen one still sitting in the version of this story where they think they imagined it all. You didn't imagine it, none of it. Now let's finish this properly. Number 11. Why this isn't about revenge, it's about the ledger balancing. It's easy to assume a story like this is really just revenge, wearing a nicer word. And if that's what you've been feeling underneath all this, that's honest, and it's human, and nobody's going to shame you for it after everything you carried alone. But look closer at what's actually happening here, because it isn't revenge, and the difference matters more than it might seem right now. Revenge requires you to act. It requires effort, planning, energy spent on people who already cost you enough energy for a lifetime. What's happening instead doesn't ask anything of you at all. It's not punishment you're inflicting, it's a ledger simply reaching the balance it was always going to reach. The same way any account eventually settles whether the person holding the debt wants it to or not. You didn't set the interest rate. You didn't decide the terms. You just kept living honestly while the terms quietly worked themselves out in the background, completely independent of anything you did or didn't do. That distinction matters because it means you get to watch this unfold with clean hands, without the exhaustion of having orchestrated it, without the guilt some part of you might have felt if you had. Picture a scale that's been tilted for years, weighted unfairly on one side by choices that were never yours, choices that quietly added up while you kept placing nothing but honesty on your own side. A scale like that doesn't need someone to force it back into balance. It only needs enough weight to finally exist on the other side, and that weight has been building this entire time, one unpaid consequence at a time. It isn't revenge, chosen one, it's math. And math, eventually, always finishes the equation whether anyone's rooting for a particular outcome or not. Number 12. What they lose that they never expected to lose. When people imagine consequences, they usually imagine the obvious ones. Being confronted, being embarrassed, having to apologize out loud to someone they spent years pretending didn't matter to them. But the deepest loss in a moment like this isn't the confrontation itself. It's what happens after, quietly, in every relationship that was built on the version of them that existed before the exposure. Because once people see the pattern clearly, once they understand what was done and how long it was hidden, they don't just reassess what happened to you, they reassess everything else too. Every kindness that person showed someone else suddenly gets a question mark next to it. Every story they told about themselves gets re-examined for the parts that might have been quietly edited. That's the real cost, and it's the one they never saw coming, because they assumed the damage would be contained to their relationship with you. It never stays contained. Trust doesn't work in isolated compartments. Once it cracks in one place, people instinctively check every other place it might also be cracked, and usually they find exactly what they're looking for. Imagine discovering a single termite hole in a piece of furniture you trusted completely, and realizing that finding it means you now have to check every other piece of furniture in the house, because if it happened once in a place you weren't looking, it could be happening everywhere you weren't looking. That's what's about to happen to the people who wronged you. Their exposure isn't a single event contained to a single relationship. It's a reason for everyone around them to start checking the furniture. And chosen one, most of them are about to find a lot more damage than they expected. Number 13. What happens to you while all of this unfolds? Here's the part that matters most, and it's easy to lose sight of it while you're focused on everyone else finally being seen clearly. While this entire structure collapses around the people who wronged you, nothing is required of you except continuing to exist exactly as honestly as you already have been. You don't have to watch every moment of it. You don't have to track every consequence, celebrate every fall, or spend your energy making sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve. That instinct is understandable, but it isn't necessary, and chasing it would cost you something far more valuable than any satisfaction it could offer. What you get to do instead is live, genuinely, quietly, without the constant internal argument you used to have with yourself about whether you were remembering things correctly, whether you were the problem, whether you should have just let it go a long time ago. That argument is over. It ended the moment the pattern became undeniable, whether or not a single other person ever said it out loud to you directly. You get your peace back, not as a reward you have to earn through watching them suffer, but simply as the natural result of no longer needing to defend a version of events that everyone can now see clearly for themselves. Picture someone who spent years carrying a heavy bag they were told wasn't actually heavy, told repeatedly that they were imagining the weight, that they should be able to carry it easily like everyone else seemed to. Then one day, someone else picks up that exact bag and immediately understands, without being told, exactly how heavy it always was. That recognition alone, chosen one, is worth more than watching a single person apologize. You were never wrong about the weight. You're just finally allowed to put it down. Number 14. The rebuilding that starts the moment the noise settles. Exposure isn't the end of your story, even though it might feel like the whole point right now. It's the clearing, not the construction. Once the dust settles, once the names have all been said, and the rooms that laughed have finished answering for it, there's an entire life waiting on the other side that has nothing to do with any of them. This is the part people underestimate, because the exposure itself feels so large, so long overdue, that it's tempting to assume everything important ends there. It doesn't. It begins there. Everything you built quietly while carrying this, the discipline, the patience, the refusal to become someone bitter and reactive just because bitterness would have been an easy, understandable choice. All of that becomes the foundation for what comes next, and none of them get to touch it. They spent their energy managing a lie. You spent yours becoming someone who could survive the truth. That's not a small difference. It's the entire difference. And it's the reason the next chapter of your life looks nothing like the one they were trying to write for you. Imagine a field that's been cleared after a long, overdue burn, blackened and stripped down to nothing on the surface, but underneath, the soil is finally ready for something that couldn't have grown there while all that old, dead material was still standing in the way. That's what this clearing is. Not destruction for its own sake, but the necessary emptying that makes room for what actually grows. You're standing at the edge of that field right now, chosen one, and everything that's about to be exposed isn't the ending of your story. It's the very last thing standing between you and the version of your life that was always waiting on the other side of this. Number 15. The final truth they can never take back. After this, none of them get to wonder anymore whether they got away with it. That question, the one they've quietly carried underneath every confident smile and every casual dismissal of what they did, gets answered permanently, for all of them, at the same time. There's no version of this where it happens and then quietly fades, where enough time passes that it becomes an old story nobody brings up anymore. Once a pattern this connected gets exposed all at once, it doesn't get forgotten, it gets remembered as exactly what it was. A structure of quiet cruelty that finally ran out of places to hide. You don't have to make sure people remember it correctly. The scale of it, the simultaneity of it, the sheer number of names connected to the same pattern, that does the remembering on its own. What you carry forward from this isn't the memory of what they did. You already had that. You've had it this whole time, whether anyone believed you or not. What you carry forward is something they can never take from you again, the confirmation that you were right, that you weren't imagining it, that the discomfort you felt walking into certain rooms wasn't a flaw in your perception, it was your perception working exactly the way it was supposed to. That confirmation is permanent. It doesn't expire when the news cycle moves on. It doesn't fade when people stop talking about it in a month. It becomes part of the foundation you build everything else on top of. Solid, settled, finally undisputed. Chosen one, they spent years hoping you'd eventually doubt yourself into silence. Instead, the entire structure they built to keep you doubting yourself is the exact thing about to collapse. Publicly, permanently, all at once, with every single name attached to it standing in the same light when it finally comes down. Number 16. Why the timing is exact even when it feels late. There's a specific kind of pain in watching this take as long as it did, and if you've spent nights wondering why the universe let it drag on, why it didn't happen sooner, back when it might have spared you a few more bruises along the way, that pain is real, and it deserves to be named instead of brushed past. But look at the timing honestly for a second, because it wasn't late, it was exact. Exposure that comes too early gets absorbed. People apologize quickly, adjust their story just enough to survive the moment, and life resumes with barely a scratch on the structure they built. That's not what was needed here, and some part of you has always known that a quick, early correction would have let every single one of them off with the smallest possible cost. The timing had to wait until the pattern was complete, until every name had fully committed to their version of the story, until there was no early exit left for any of them to quietly slip through before the full weight arrived. Think about a dam that holds water back, not to punish the river, but because releasing it too early would only create a small, forgettable flood that the land downstream barely notices before it dries up again. Held long enough, that same water becomes something the land can't ignore, something that reshapes the ground permanently instead of just passing over it. That's the difference between an early correction and what's actually arriving now. You weren't being punished by the delay, chosen one. You were being protected from a version of justice too small to actually matter, so that the version that finally arrives is too large for any of them to manage their way around. Number 17. What you get to keep that none of this can touch. There's one more thing worth naming clearly before we close, because it's easy to get swept up in everything that's about to happen to them and forget the part of this that was never actually about them at all. Somewhere in the middle of carrying all of this alone, you built something that has nothing to do with their exposure, something that belongs entirely to you and can't be taken back no matter how this unfolds from here. You built the ability to sit inside discomfort without needing to perform your pain for an audience to make it feel valid. You built the patience to let a slow, invisible process finish on its own timeline, instead of forcing a smaller, less complete version of it out of impatience. You built a version of yourself that didn't need every single person to believe you before you were willing to keep believing yourself. None of that came from them being exposed. All of it came from what you did while waiting for a moment you couldn't control, couldn't schedule, and couldn't force into existence, no matter how badly you wanted it some nights. That's the part of this story that was always the real one, even before any of them are held accountable for anything. Picture someone forging something durable in a fire they didn't choose to walk into, and coming out the other side holding something no amount of exposure, apology, or consequence delivered to anyone else could ever hand them, because it was never something that could be given. It could only be built, slowly, the exact way you built it. That's yours, chosen one, permanently, regardless of what any of them ever say, admit, or apologize for. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started, chosen one, because everything you just walked through connects to a single truth, and it's worth saying plainly one more time before we close. Every person who ever wronged you in silence is about to be judged in the open, together, at the same time, with no way for any of them to hide behind the others. That wasn't a promise built on hope. It was a description of something already in motion long before this video reached you. You felt the pressure building for a reason. You felt the strange calm settling into certain rooms for a reason. You felt people getting quieter around you for a reason. None of that was your imagination working overtime. That was the ground shifting under a structure that was never as stable as the people standing on it believed it to be. Think back through everything we just covered, because none of it stands alone. All of it builds toward the same single moment. The list that was never yours to keep but existed anyway, dated and complete, every name accounted for. The lies that only survived because they were kept apart, about to be placed side by side for the first time. The quiet ones, the ones who told themselves silence was safety, about to discover that silence was never neutral. It was a choice, with a price attached the whole time. The pattern that stopped looking like bad luck and started looking exactly like what it always was. The reason this comes as a flood and not a drip, because a slow drip lets people manage their way out of accountability, and nothing about this was ever going to let them manage their way out. The ones who thought careful silence made them invisible, about to discover they were standing in the exact center of the room the entire time. The case you never had to build, because it was already written the moment each of them made their choice. The stories that stopped matching each other, the second real pressure touched any one of them. The rooms that laughed, about to become the rooms that answer, in the same seats, with the same audience watching. The ledger, finally balancing, not because you forced it, but because that's simply what ledgers eventually do. The losses they never expected, the ones that spread past you into every other relationship, built on the version of them that no longer holds up. And you, chosen one, standing at the center of all of it, required to do absolutely nothing except keep living exactly as honestly as you already have been, while an entire structure built on your silence collapses under its own weight. And it isn't just about them anymore either, because somewhere in the middle of all of this, you quietly built something of your own, something that has nothing to do with their exposure and everything to do with who you became while you were waiting for it. The timing that felt late was never actually late. It was exact, held back only long enough to become something too large for any of them to manage their way around the way they would have managed a smaller, earlier version of it. And what you carry forward from all of this isn't just the satisfaction of watching a structure collapse. It's the version of yourself that got built in the waiting, the one that can sit inside discomfort without needing an audience to validate it, the one that trusted its own memory of events long before anyone else was willing to confirm it out loud. That part was never given to you by their exposure. It was built by you, alone, in rooms nobody was watching, and it's the one thing in this entire story that belongs to you completely, untouched by anything they ever say or fail to say once this reaches them. This is the part where most people either close the video or actually let it change something. You already know which one you are, because you've made it this far, and people who were only half paying attention dropped off a long time ago. If you're still here, you already know this isn't just a story about other people finally facing consequences. It's a story about you finally getting to put down something you were never supposed to carry alone in the first place. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. You didn't do anything wrong by staying quiet while you waited for this. It's arriving now, chosen one, and it's arriving exactly the way it needed to, all at once, undeniable, impossible to compartmentalize into something small enough for any of them to quietly manage their way through. What comes after this isn't your responsibility to orchestrate, and it never was. Your only job was always the one you already did, without needing to be told, which was to survive it accurately, without becoming bitter, without becoming someone who needed everyone else to see the truth before you were allowed to trust your own memory of it. You did that. You're still doing that. And that's exactly why you get to watch this unfold from the one position nobody can take away from you now, the position of someone who never needed the exposure to know they were right, but who's about to get it anyway, in full, in the open, all at once. From the outside, none of this ever looked like much. It looked like someone who stayed quiet a little too long, someone who didn't defend themselves loudly enough, fast enough, publicly enough to satisfy people who mistake volume for truth. That's what it looked like from the outside, and Chosen One, that outside view was always wrong, because it never had access to what was actually happening underneath. What was actually happening underneath was a full accounting taking shape, patiently, completely, without needing your permission or your management to keep moving forward. You weren't failing to defend yourself. You were simply not the one doing the defending. Something larger than any single argument you could have made in the moment was already building the only kind of case that was ever going to matter, the kind built out of their own choices instead of your protests. If this message reached the exact part of you it was meant to reach, let it be known. Drop 77 in the comments one final time, not as a ritual this time, but as a marker, a line in the sand that says, you were here, you felt this, and you're ready for what's already in motion. Hit like, hit subscribe, and if you know another chosen one still sitting quietly in the version of this story where they think they imagined all of it, send this to them. They need to hear it exactly the way you needed to hear it. Thank you for being part of this today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and goodbye.